Welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes of Wisdom, a channel dedicated to helping you expand your knowledge and develop a more successful and peaceful mind. Today's guest is an award-winning picture editor. Recently has worked on such TV shows as Mary Kills People, Ransom, 10 Days in the Valley, and Letterkenny. He's also worked on such feature films as The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind, Leigh, and Let Her Out. He's also an incredible musician and a longtime friend of mine. Please welcome to the show, Duncan Christie. Welcome, Duncan.
Hi, how you doing, man?
Excellent, dude. Excellent. So good to see you.
Good, great. Yeah, we were just saying we haven't talked in, I don't know, 6 years or something crazy.
That's the nice thing about Messenger, though, and Facebook. At least, like, I get to see
that's true.
Your kid grow up, and I get to send you little things like the Madrid CD I found the other day.
Yeah.
And
Totally, man. Yeah, no, it's. I guess that's the weird thing is that we haven't actually physically seen each other in ages, but still feel like we're connected.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a nice thing about technology that I'm able to see you and able to share in your in your progression and your family things. I knew, and I was like, I follow your stories.
Yeah, it's kind of old news, right?
yeah, no, it's cool. It's
I know what you mean.
A big advantage of technology. So
Totally.
yeah, man. So look, to begin, just wanted to ask you, what are you working on? What was the last project you were working on? And what are you up to, man, these days?
The last professional project I did was a show called Tiny Pretty Things, and it's not out yet. It's a Netflix show, so it's coming out in I think September. They're gonna drop it. It's like a 10-part sort of ballet school drama, and it's really well written. It's the same. It's Michael McLennan. He's the creator of a show called Queer as Folk, which was like a pretty famous show from back in the day. He's a super talented guy, and so it was a really great, cool show to work on.
Nice.
And that wrapped in. I finished that up in March, pretty much like a week before this coronavirus hit, and my plan all along was to finish that job and then start diving in full time into renovating this house that I'm renovating, our new house. It's been going on since October of last year, but I was, working every day, so I couldn't really focus on it. So I dove into that, and that's pretty much what I've been doing every day since March, is like doing house stuff.
Okay.
House shit.
Awesome. So when you get a project like that, and actually I had a song in one of the episodes of Queer as Folk.
Oh, cool.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, right on.
Awesome.
Madrid had a song in that show, the L Word.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? It was another gay and lesbian show.
Yeah. Right. They have fantastic taste in music.
They do, yeah, for sure.
Yes. So, when you do a project like that, how does that come to be? Like, did they approach you? Do you have like an agent? You're pretty well known, so they kind of reach out to you, or how does that work?
It was through my agent. Yeah. So I have an agent, and a lot of my shows will come to me directly, but one of the advantages of having an agent is that they kind of they hear about things before other people do. So, in the early days of these productions ramping up, the agents kind of always have the inside scoop on what's coming up and stuff. So, in this case, it was my agent who put me forward for it. And then, and then you kind of meet, we did like a Skype call because all the producers were in LA. And so we, do a Skype call, and we kind of like sort of feel each other out a bit. And then obviously they talk to all of their producer friends, and one of them's worked with me. And so they get references like that. And then, I get the gig.
Awesome. So is it like, do you have to bid for it? Is it a compete for it, or it's just kind of like?
It's competition, but there's nothing you can do about it. It's just like you meet with the producers via a Skype call, or in person if they're in town, but if Skype if they're in LA or whatever, and you meet with them, and it's like a informal interview. They just kind of want to suss out your vibe or whatever, and then yeah, they'll look at your credits and your resume, and they'll chit chat amongst themselves, and they've met with 5 other editors, and we're all kind of vying for it, but there's nothing we can really do actively to compete for it. So
yeah,
it's
I guess
kind of up in the hands.
Yeah, I guess your work speaks for itself, I guess,
Yeah, totally. And if it's yeah, exactly, and also just if the producers feel like it's the right fit for your show,
right,
or for the show, then yeah, then you have a good chance.
So do you have a unique editing style that people like seek, and they say, oh well, that's because I'm no expert, I'm shameful rookie at editing, and for yourself, like, you must have that eye to say, like, oh, that, can you see something and say, like, oh, that looks like it was edited by, or it's in that style, and you have like your own style of editing?
Not really, no. I would say no. I mean, editing is one of those, it's like an invisible art form where it's really you're telling the story, and so at a certain point there's not really, you're not injecting, I mean, you're always injecting your own style into it, but it's not necessarily something that sticks out as a recognizable trait of your work, because if you put the same, if you had like, oh, like, I'm the guy that always does like the cut long cut, and like you can't do that for everything you're working on, because all you're doing is you're serving the story, and you're serving the style of the show and the shots that they've got. You're not going to like put your style onto something that it doesn't call for, if that makes sense. You're kind of like we're like, it's more like chameleon style, where you're just serving the story, and you're serving the visual that are on screen. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's like a style that you can imprint onto whatever you're working on.
Okay.
Other than quality, like, it's just, is it good? That's the style. For sure. That's my style.
Yeah, it's good work. That's my style. Yeah. That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Is there a project that you're most proud of? Like, you've done so many amazing things. Is there something that just like stuck out to you and you said, hey, what, that was either the most fun, the most enjoyable, or the final product where you're like, wow, man, like, I was really in the zone. Like, that was really, really good.
Yeah, there's been a few of them. Let me think for a sec. I mean, I like to think that they're all kind of like that, but they're often, they're not. Kenny versus Spenny was a show that it kind of became almost like a lifestyle. Like, we all became super good friends, and it was like we had our posse, and it blended into our social lives, into our everyday lives kind of thing. So that was something I was like, I can't pinpoint a specific episode or season. It was more just like an era of my life kind of thing. Because I worked on that show for 7 years, so or 7 seasons straight. So that was like a chunk of time, and I guess I'm proud of that, because it was a good show, and it was like I said, it sort of spilled into all aspects of life. Other things, like that movie that I did for Rue Morgue, it's called The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Leigh. It's a really like kind of special movie in that we cut the movie at Rue Morgue, which is it's like a horror magazine. It started that way, horror culture magazine, and the founder of it, Rodrigo Godinho, was the director, and this was his first feature. And so it was like really kind of, it's just something kind of special about this, the process of making this movie. It was like, he's such a cool dude, and he's such a great guy, and so working on it with him together, it was like, I don't know, it's like us kind of becoming friends. And anyone that's in that kind of position where they're sort of entrusting their creative vision with someone, because that's what editing is, right? You're sort of the director editor relationship is like you're like in bed with them creatively, and so I could tell at first there was a little bit of that, I don't know you kind of vibe, and usually like a lot of people just kind of want to work with people they've worked with before because it's more comfortable. But he saw something on my demo reel that kind of, I don't know, something spoke to him, and he kind of took a chance on me. And I'm only saying took a chance because of that unfamiliarity kind of aspect. But it turned out to be great, and it turned out that we had a great time, and we were totally creatively in sync, and we became super good friends. Kind of like lifelong friends throughout that process. Yeah, another one was I did a show for a company called Banger Films. They did a movie called Metal: A Headbanger's Journey. It was like a documentary about Sam Dunn, who's the founder of the company. He did like a documentary on heavy metal. Anyway, they produce amazing, like super in-depth documentary shows, mostly based around music. The show was called Rock Icons, and it was again one of those situations where I really, really admired their work, and I wanted to work with them. And I kind of knew Sam through some through friends of friends, and I'd always been kind of bugging him every time I saw him at a party, like, "Yo, like I really want to work with you, man." But I'm, but again, it's that kind of thing where it's like, I don't know you, I don't know, and then, we start working together, and he actually, a proud moment for me was he drunkenly said to me one night at the rap party or something, he's like, "I should have hired you years ago, man." So I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And again, became really good friends with the guy.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
how is that working? Like you're saying about like, like obviously we know about LA, and I mean, Toronto is a fantastic city, but how is the scene there? And does it require you? I mean, I know this is unusual times, but does it require you often to fly to LA, or you mostly can do it from Toronto?
Not really. Yeah, it's basically what happens with a lot of these big American shows now is that they shoot in Toronto, and if we're lucky, we'll do the post in Toronto, which means that we'll be cutting it up here, and they will just be here. Like they'll relocate themselves to be here, because even though they would probably be happier at home in LA. There's a lot of sort of complicated union shit about why we can't go down there. There's the different unions, and there's like this roster of like, it's all like IATSE, NABET shit. Like it's just, yeah, it's all kinds of nonsense. And also obviously the border and the, visas and all this shit is super complicated. So it's easier for them and it's cheaper for them because they get Canadian tax credits to, hire a certain amount of key creatives. It's called key creatives. It's like directors, cinematographers, editors, production designers are sort of like the key creatives. And so if they use Canadian talent for those positions, then they get a certain amount of tax breaks, all this kind of business shit. So yeah, basically, no, we don't really ever have to fly down to LA to work. Although that would be a perk. I would like to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking it's not the greatest. Yeah, especially in the winter, like a winter in Toronto, I'd be like, fly to LA for a bit. I'd be
absolutely. I'd be all over that. If there's any producers listening to this podcast, I would say hire me. But one of my stipulations is that you have to bring me down to LA to do it.
Nice. And as far as like studio, do you have a separate studio, I guess, that you work in? Do you sometimes work at home a little bit, or most like you have a dedicated spot?
Not really a dedicated spot. We will edit wherever the production, chooses, in a sense of like they get sort of a package deal from these big post houses like Deluxe or Technicolor, where those companies or those facilities will like come on board the production, and they will be processing the dailies, like processing the footage, and they'll be doing the finishing, the color correction, and the mixing and stuff. So it's kind of like the post package. And with that, they get rooms that we can bring our edit suites into and set up for the project. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more working from home now, which is awesome because I happen to be building an amazing custom-made underground bunker studio currently. So I'm hoping to be able to use that a lot.
Nice, dude. That sounds amazing. And what I don't know if you can talk to it. What editing tools or what softwares and stuff are you using? Like what do you have? So I would imagine there's
It's straight up Avid, just
Mm.
simple Avid all the way. Or I'm sort of maybe not editing shows that require me to do any fancy effects and stuff like that. There's lots of visual effects that happen, but they happen, with a team of people on their gear. I don't have to. I'm not like cutting a sizzle reel where I have to do all kinds of crazy shit. It's just like straight up editing. And Avid is always like the tool that I've used. I've done some shows on Final Cut Pro, but no, it's just pure Avid. Actually, just Avid on a laptop hooked up to a couple of Thunderbolt monitors, and that's it.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, I guess it's often it's the person, right? It's the talent. Like everyone can have a guitar, but not everyone can play it, right? So it doesn't. Yeah. It's your talent.
Yeah, but beyond that, I mean, offline editing, which is what I do. It's basically, it's just cutting images. So Avid is like, it's the pinnacle of the equipment you can use. Really, it's a simple. Strangely, it's a simple technical field. There's a lot of shit that happens behind the scenes, and there's crazy amounts of like render farms and all kinds of fancy gear for the stuff that ends up in the show. But what we do is like, we're just cutting with proxies. Like we're cutting with like HD files, straight cuts, and then we give that information to someone else, and they spend all the time and money making it all super fancy or whatever. But the actual storytelling is just super simple. Yeah, you can do it on a laptop, basically.
Right. Cool. Yeah. You could just have easily been a audio editor or mixer because you're so talented in that too. So do you ever? I don't know. Like now that you've kind of established and people know you so well as an editor and working on so many amazing projects, do you ever consider like in the music thing, like because you could. I mean, I know how talented you are in that side, in that field as well.
So you're asking like about whether I would just do music?
Well, you could either do like music editing, or even like you could do. I know you're capable of doing like even soundtracks or
right
any kind of music, anything to do with music. Yeah. When it comes to film and TV.
So the cool thing is that that's actually what I do. Like I there's picture and then there's sound, and as the editor, I'm doing it all. So editing a TV show is, you're not only editing the picture, but you're also creating the soundtrack. So it's actually married, completely intertwined with what I do picture wise. And that's probably why, I don't know if there's talent there. It's maybe that has something to do with it. It's because I understand how it all works together, and I'm using it all together all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Music,
cool.
Music editing and sound effects editing, and creating moods and feels by pulling different pieces of music from here and there and mixing them and changing them when they need to be changed, and creating the emotional flow of the whole thing. It's what I do, like day in, day out.
Okay, amazing. I didn't know. That shows how much I know about the industry. I didn't know. I thought that it was like strictly like picture, but you're doing both, the picture and the audio. Amazing.
I'm doing both. So whatever comes out of my room, like that the QuickTime movie of the thing we just created, that then gets worked on by teams of other people. They will redo some of the sound effects, and they'll remix it, and they'll do dialogue editing, recording, but it's all serving that thing we created. It's all just enhancing it. Like, so the composer will take the temp stuff that I've done, and they'll compose music to it, but it follows the arc of, what we've done in the offline suite.
Is there somebody in the field of editing? Is there like someone you look up to and say like kind of like a role model, and say like, that guy's editing is just amazing? And
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I have to say, not really. Like, it's a strange. It's like, yeah, it's like an invisible art form. You know directors and you admire directors' work, um, and I suppose that's who, because we know we're all filmmakers, so I guess a director is an easier thing to sort of pinpoint as a certain style or whatever. I think the only editor, I mean, I kind of know two editors. There's this is embarrassing as a professional editor. I mean, I recognize certain names all the time, but like Walter Merck is the guy that I could pinpoint as like, oh yeah, he's like that famous editor. He cut Apocalypse Now and but yeah, he's like an Oscar-winning sound editor and mixer and um, cuts a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Thelma Schumacher, that's the other one. That's Martin Scorsese's editor. But yeah, there's no real like role models or rock star editors that you want to be like. It's just a weird. It's a strange art form in that sense.
Cool. And
Yeah.
I mean, you've done some. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've done some directing yourself.
Yeah.
It's something that they say the best. I've heard from the little I know is that the best directors often start as editors because they can understand it in the same way you so wisely were talking about music, how music editing, and you can see the waveforms. And I'm pretty good at music editing.
Yeah.
Very very good at it. And
Yeah.
so I can see. So when I started myself editing, in a rookie level, I just do everything from the audio because I'm so familiar with it, right?
Totally.
Which is nice. So having that point of view, and again, coming from that perspective that some of the best directors start as very good editors. Do you see that in your future?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of my future and my past. Like, I got into editing. In film school, I was more in the directing path. I was like going to be a director, but basically like directing in the sense that you're telling a story. And I think, or to just be like, yo, I'm a director. And some people do it. And I think it takes a certain personality to like, just keep pushing yourself like that, or to keep not really pushing yourself, but it's like putting yourself out there all the time. And so, coming out of college, you also kind of need to get a job. And so I got into post production. I was always the guy that could do the creative work, but also do the technical work. So, like, I was never scared of the technology because, I played with drum machines in the '90s and stuff, and so I was always like, oh, I can do this like technical shit. I can learn how to use like the tape machines and all that stuff, and yet still bring like a creative, juice to it, kind of thing. So blending those two things, and that's kind of how the path of editing, came to me. And it's like, absolutely, I'm a better director than a lot of directors because I'm an editor. Absolutely, like 100%.
Yeah.
And for sure, when you work with directors, the best directors are the ones who understand and respect the craft of editing, because it's like that's all you're doing, really. Sorry, directors, but that's all you're doing is you're getting the shots so that we can tell the story. Like, it's not like I'm saying, oh, we make it. I'm just saying it's part and parcel of the same thing. Without editing, there's no nothing. So, and yet without directing, there's no nothing either. So it's kind of like two halves of the same whole. Is that deep enough for a deep enough explanation of filmmaking?
It's great, dude. Absolutely. Is there some directors that you always wanted to work with, or is somebody that you say, hey, that would be awesome?
I would love to cut a Wes Anderson movie for sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, sure. Yeah, there's tons of awesome directors I'd love to work with. Paul Thomas Anderson, David Lynch. Yeah, all those guys.
So do you see do you foresee in the future, is it something that you like aspire to, to get into that more back into directing later, or is like you're kind of like comfortable in this now, or is it, I don't know, it's like they're a natural progression, like you've earned your stripes,
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I think that directing it's actually not as creatively satisfying as editing. Like I've directed stuff on somewhat of a big scale, not like huge scale, but a proper production where it's like a $2 million movie or something where there's like, a proper crew and big trucks and all of that shit. And so I've worked in that realm, and it's, if you're working with the right people, it can be really fun, and it's like a super amazing fun thing to do. And it's like problem solving and thinking on your feet and all of these sort of fun things that I really enjoy. But it's also a lot of bullshit and like a lot of just dealing with people that you don't really want to deal with. And so it can be also a total nightmare, and it's not a fun thing at all. It can be awful. And so I always have this sort of sometimes I feel like, like, because I can do it, I know I'm good at it, I can do it. It's not that, but it's the proving yourself. I have to prove that I can do your project, man. I am worthy enough to direct your thing. And that sort of energy of putting yourself out there. Maybe it's my age, but it's also maybe confidence that, like, I don't have that need to prove myself. So therefore, I think, well, I could also just keep cutting because I have a great career editing and I'm happy, and I'm, so like, why do I don't necessarily need that, So it's not like it's something that's like lacking or that I'm trying to aspire to get to. It's something that I will continue to dabble in, and if people want me to direct stuff, I will, in the future for sure. Things kind of come to me. Like, I got a call a few years ago from a producer that I used to work with, and he's like, "Duncan, do you want to direct a talking dog movie?" And I was like, "Yes, sure, I can I'll think about it." Like, and so I got to direct this, a kids movie. And a lot of people work for a lot of years to even get to that point. And I wasn't, I didn't have the directing resume for it really, but this guy knew that I could do it, and I killed it for what it was.
what's is that out? What's that called? The movie?
It's called Bark Ranger, and it shows up on like Super Channel once in a while. It's like I'll get a text from my mom, "Hey, Bark Ranger's on tonight." Yeah, it's a cute little movie. Actually, my 5-year-old son watched it, and he loved it. So yeah, that was kind of fun.
That's fulfilling. That's very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. I wanted to ask you as well about music. You're a very, very talented musician. I remember when we were very young, when you got your first guitar. Mm-hmm. And you were like so good at guitar, so fast. I remember it was like 1 week. And correct me if I'm wrong. Seriously, it was like 1 week you had your guitar, and I come over and you're like, yeah, I can already play like 8 AC/DC songs, and it's guitar is pretty easy. And like, I've never seen anybody ever like be that natural. And,
I don't know if I can correct you, because I think whatever the myth is I like the myth better than it could have been true, though. I think I did pick it up pretty fast.
Very fast.
Yeah, and I remember I mean, you and Danny, your brother, you've told me that story a bunch of times, and I think it's awesome that you sort of like, that was your experience of watching me learn guitar, was just like boom, this overnight thing. And
it was. Maybe it really was.
It kind of was. Yeah, I have a little bit of a gift, I guess, for some things that I pick up. I can just do really well, really fast. And yeah, my parents have always told me that. They're like, "Oh, you can, whatever you pick up, you basically start rocking it pretty fast."
Yeah. I've witnessed that with guitar and with skateboarding. You were like the best skateboarder back in the day. Like skateboarding's easy, and like guitar's easy. Like nobody says that,
Right. Well, that's cool. I'm glad I'm not just saying that about myself. I've got some proof, and some living proof to do that.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about. Okay, so I was a music producer. I mean, was whatever. am was for many, many, many years, like over a decade. And what I realized by cutting so many tracks and editing and recording and all this stuff is that when I listen to songs on the radio or I watch a movie, I have such a different, unique perspective on the song. Like I'll hear a song and be like, I'll hear the mistake, or I'll be like, that was a crappy edit, or that was rushed, or whatever. Totally. And still to this day, there's very few bands that I can listen to. Some of my favorite bands that I could always listen to was, let's say, Pink Floyd. No matter what I was in, I could never break it down and dissect it and say like there's something wrong with it or something like that. I also am still a very big Madrid fan, as you know, which is phenomenal. And I wanted to ask you about your perspective on that. So still to this day, when I hear somebody talk, or I know when someone's lying because that micro difference in their voice, or when they're nervous or anything, because you've seen, like I've seen 1,000 million waves. How does that relate? How do you see the world now that you've edited so much? How has that affected your perception of the world?
That's a good question. I'd like to say it hasn't really. I think it's sharpened other like life skills, I guess. I'm much more organized. My brain is capable of a much bigger capacity of like organization and like sort of problem solving with people. I'm kind of good at like, synthesizing down to the nugget of what the fucking problem is or whatever, because that for sure comes from being a professional editor. And it's like sometimes, with my wife, it's funny. We'll get into a little bit of a disagreement or something, and I'm like, because maybe her perspective is that I'm being critical, but then what it is that I'm actually a professional critic. So you have to excuse the fact that it's just critiquing. It's not, or it's just it's my brain trying to like. I guess I bring my work into some things, Now it's like I sound like I'm trying to say sorry to my wife for being a fucking for being a critic. So yeah, I guess absolutely my worldview has changed just in the way I can process stuff in my brain. But that's also just age and wisdom too.
No, for sure. But let's say Rowan's having a birthday party, right? Your son's having a birthday party. Now, the fact that you're so good at editing, let's say, a film of a birthday party, could you see you can see what would be the best scenes? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
like
for sure. Yeah, totally. It makes I guess it would make me a better sort of documentarian. Like I'm always cognizant of the fact that this was a good photo or whatever, and so or this would be a good shot in that movie of this experience. Yeah, for sure, it does totally.
So, do you have wicked awesome home movies of like?
I would if I just had more time to devote to it. Put it that way. Yeah, I would for sure. I mean, yeah, I've put together some great vacation videos and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think as far as like my experience of watching TV shows and movies, I think maybe more so at the beginning of my career where I'd be like trying to really analyze the editing, but I don't really do that anymore. It's because, like I said, good editing it's an invisible thing that you can't really pick up on. You just pick up on whether or not the thing that you're watching is working, emotionally. And so yeah, I stopped trying to like see the editing because otherwise then what are you doing? You just want to be immersed in the story.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why you're watching it.
Oh, absolutely. But I was saying just as in with music, that it wasn't by choice. It was like my mind would just start deciphering. So has it ruined any movies or TV shows for you, or the experience of watching it? Because can you detach from that? Let's say
I can detach. Yeah, I could choose to not detach and really just focus on all the technical aspects of what's going on. But I can detach and just get caught up in story for sure. Yeah, which I'm happy for because I think I like watching movies and TV. So I'm glad that it hasn't ruined that for me.
What advice would you have for a young, aspiring editor, director, someone that wants to get into this kind of field?
Um, I think I would say, as with anything in media, it's kind of like, networking is important. I think it's like, who you're working with is really, it's sort of, that's all there is in a sense. There'll be other projects, there'll be many, many, many things you do. And so you kind of pick and choose the things you want to focus on and really put energy into. And it often comes down to people. It's like, who do you want to be spending your time with? So that would be, some advice I guess I could give to someone that is starting out, is like, don't waste your time with shitty people, because really it's not going to change the course of your life if you do this job or don't do this job, because there's going to be others. The next job is always coming, or the next opportunity is always coming. So don't work with shitty people, or just, not shitty people, but just if there's creative differences or a relationship that you don't really want to, you just feel like it's not working for you, then don't be afraid to just like move on. Yeah. And actually, strangely, or luckily, I should say, I haven't had many of those experiences where I haven't worked with many horrible people. Maybe like 2 in 20 years of doing it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I hear stories, so I'm just saying, like.
Okay, thanks, Duncan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome catching up with you. Congratulations on all your success. And I know there's tons more amazing things that you're going to be doing in the future. And thanks for Kenny versus Spenny, because that was a big impact on my life and gave me many hours of enjoyment.
Awesome.
So with that, I'll wish you a successful and peaceful mind and continued success.
Thanks, dude. It was great chatting with you. And
awesome.
All the best to you as well. Thanks.
Awesome, bro. Okay. Thanks, man. Okay, bye, Duncan.
Peace. Bye.